It's taken us, several months to actually pull this together with our partners, both Intel, Hewlett-Packard, and Intelitech. So we want to thank all of you for coming. We're going to do this little panel session. We're going to be doing this each one of the 3 days that we're here so that we engage faculty on how this technology can impact the classroom. But more importantly, how do we engage students? So when I contacted Rosie, actually Rosie contacted me and she says, we're doing all this great stuff in K through 12. I said, whoa, you're doing all this great stuff in K through 12. Well, what happens in a couple of years when they start landing on our campus? And I said, you know, we've got to be prepared for this. I need 4 years just to prepare for infrastructure changes, like wireless. We're going to see an explosion of wireless devices on our campus. Right now, we're designed for 1 device per person, and we need 5 devices per person in the future. So for me, we're building out that technology now, but what else do we need to build out? What are some of the other things that we need to be taking a look at? So Rosie Salgado, raise your hand, Rosie. Everybody knows Rosie. Rosie and I have been working together for 25 years, so we're deeply embedded in the technology, but I wanted to show where can technology impact our classroom. So that's why we pulled this event together. So I want to thank Mike and the innovative teaching and technology people and all the work that they've put together in helping us, because you guys put the glue to this, really. We're providing the technology, you're showing how it's going to impact the classroom and impact learning, because that's what we're all about. If our students aren't enriched through this process, we failed. So that's what we're trying to gear this towards, and we need your help to do that. We need you to be disciples, so we all know what that means. Would you mind if I stopped and I just bless this event with prayer? Our gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for all the provisions you provide us, Father, and the blessings that we have to bring all these people here together. Father, we are here because of you, and we keep our eyes on you as this event encourages technology, but we don't want to lose the message that you are behind everything, Father. And as our mission is to go out and make difference makers in the world, we ask that you would bless us with the wisdom and knowledge to use this technology appropriately, so that's what we are able to do. Now, Father, we bless this time to you, and we ask that your Spirit be here to guide and direct us, and we ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. So now we're going to get started with a panel discussion between our esteemed faculty members. And we're going to be, we're not streaming this now because we would compete with Chapel, which would be a no-no. I'm sure Woody would come unglued. So instead, we're taping this, but it will be available for rebroadcasting at a later time. Is that cool? We're good to go? Welcome, everyone, both here and online. I would like to welcome you to this event, Teaching in the Digital Classroom. And here today, we have a panel discussion with some esteemed faculty to discuss how technology can impact the classroom. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Ann Quinn, who is our Director of Instructional Strategy for Innovative Teaching and Technology. So Ann.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So welcome, everyone. This event is co-sponsored by the Office of Information, Media, and Technology, or IMT, and our office, the Office of Innovative Teaching and Technology, or ITT. And we also want to acknowledge Hewlett-Packard, Intel, Intelitech, and Smart Technologies for bringing all their goodies here. But we want to, as Jeff said, we want to emphasize, while this is a technology showcase, we also want to talk about pedagogy, which is why we have our faculty members here. We're going to do some Q&A, but I want to start with talking about 3 basic themes: active learning, built pedagogy, and face-to-face. So active learning just simply acknowledges that people need to be active in order to learn. My old boss, Ruth Clark, used to say, you need to have students make meaning versus just taking meaning. So active learning is a very broad category to just say the students are doing something, and if they're doing something that's related to the learning objective, so much the better. And so some of what we have here today helps to make that happen. What we're also going to think about is the idea of the learning space, or the built pedagogy, to say that the way the room is arranged, the things available to you, has an impact on learning. This could even include more informal spaces, library spaces, lounge spaces, and so forth. Although today we're going to focus more on the classroom. Then the last theme is the classroom. We are not giving up on the classroom. Especially today, we're really celebrating the classroom. And part of our brand here at APU is certainly to not neglect the classroom. We want to stay here beneath the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains and get to know our faculty members and have them provide their secret sauce that they do in person. And I'm a sometime dance teacher, and I've never found a way to do it virtually. So let's get started. I have with me two faculty members, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we're going to go through some of the questions around those themes that I mentioned. So, Kathy, you want to start?
I'm Kathy Kumagai Shimamura, Associate Professor in the Department of Physical Therapy.
And I'm Jeff Boyan in the Department of Leadership and Organizational Psychology, where I serve as an assistant professor and program director for the Leadership Minor program.
Okay, so our first question is something that our University Relations Department has been doing, which is to ask faculty members what they love about their discipline. And we're going to take that and then look at the way you teach it. So who wants to take that one?
What I love the most about my discipline is that we work with a variety of people. Some of them have very minor injuries. Some of them have had catastrophic, unimaginable injuries. And for all of these people, regardless of how severe their dysfunction is, our job really is to try to get them back and regain as much of their previous life as they had. So it's really an honor and a privilege because, like they say in the hospital, modesty goes out the window. So we're helping these people get dressed, go to the bathroom, walk again, even the simplest tasks. And we have the privilege of going side by side through this journey with our patients. And at the end of the day, if we've done something to improve the quality of our patients' lives, then it's been a great day. And that's something that never gets old and is probably, and still is, will always be, and still is the primary motivating factor for what we do.
Great, thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, so I teach leadership studies, and sometimes people hear this idea of leadership and they kind of get freak out. What is that? So it's this big, ethereal, 60,000-foot idea, and I get to bring it down back to earth. And so that's a lot of fun. I work primarily with undergrad students in my teaching, and they come into the classroom thinking, I could never be a leader. I'm not a leader. I don't even know what that means. It's this big word that, my grandpa or my mom is a CEO of an organization or something like that. And I could never do that. I wasn't born a leader. And so we unpack the reality that, in my mind anyway, leadership and life should really be these interchangeable words, that you live a certain way, and that should be the same way that you lead. And so we make it practical, and we kind of boots on the ground as opposed to the 60,000-foot level ethereal idea that leadership is a big thing. And we talk about life and understanding ourselves and understanding people and how that makes a good leader. And so I value people. They're so important to me. So if I can help students to understand that as individuals, they need to value people, and that helps them be a better leader, it's a win for all of us. So it's always a lot of fun.
So if you weren't in student council, you haven't missed the boat. There's still
Absolutely.
chance for you.
Yeah,
okay.
Anybody can lead.
Okay. So have you found in either of your fields opportunities for active learning, or how have you found opportunities for active learning?
I'm sorry, I was adjusting my chair. What?
Sure. Let's do it again. Have you found opportunities for active learning in your field when you teach?
Oh, absolutely. We've tried to create that where the student is actively involved both inside and out of the classroom. So, for example, I teach all of the neurological rehabilitation, which involves rehabilitation of stroke, head injury, spinal cord injury, and a bunch of other diagnoses. But, there's no substitute for the real thing. So, as much as possible, I do bring live patients into the department, so they actually get to listen to these people's stories, listen to what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then help them problem solve, with that patient, what's the best way to get around their current obstacles. But when the patient is not there, that's a different challenge, because how do you give them a realistic situation that forces them to critically problem solve the same way they would if the patient were actually there? So we do that through use of videos, through use of pictures and case studies. I'm very fortunate to be in the same department as Michael Wong, who's created this app. He teaches the orthopedic section, and he's created this app that helps students problem solve their way through different problems. So it has an algorithm kind of built into it. So I've come alongside him, and I'm creating the neurological app,
fabulous.
so that as they go through these series of steps, that hopefully it will not only engage them, but it'll have patient videos and things like that, so they can actually see what they're talking about. Because the hard thing is linking all of these steps together. We've all used pictures in the past. We've all used videos in the past. But for a student to be able to look at a video and analyze what the problem is, and then that will lead them to the next step, which is, how do I figure out what the source of that movement dysfunction is? And then once I figured out the source, what is the best treatment for that source? And it's linking all that together that's sometimes difficult, but hopefully it'll be ordered in a way through the app that will be the end product.
Well, and I like how you're combining the problem-based learning with the video, that it's not, just watching videos.
Yes, yes.
And it sounds like maybe the students would build empathy for the patient when you bring a live patient. And I almost wonder if you have an objective about empathy, or if that's just kind of one of your goals.
We do.
Yeah.
So we have a whole discussion about compassion.
Yeah.
And what compassion means, and about coming alongside somebody that, regardless of whatever their situation is, that our job really is to come along side by side with that patient and help them go through things. So we talk about that aspect first, and this is probably the most exciting thing for the students, to have these patients come in. And all these patients are either former patients of mine or former patients of my colleagues, and they've all been through therapy. They've had good therapists and bad therapists, and so their thought is, if contributing in this way allows the end product of this class to be better, then they sacrifice their bodies to, because these students are practicing on them. They're getting poked by pins, they're getting their legs stretched, and they all go along with the process, knowing that by doing that, the end product will be better.
Okay, thanks. What about you, Jeff?
We don't do anything with neurology and
pins,
leadership,
no
so no
poking.
pins and prodding. But
That's good.
we do talk about how what we learn on a daily basis should be not just theoretical in nature, but practical. So what we learn in a class on a Monday, you should be able to go put into practice on a Tuesday. So these are not these big ideas, but from an active learning perspective, it's not just filling our heads up with a bunch of knowledge. It's going and doing these things, because if you don't go and do, much like from a therapy standpoint, knowing something, it's almost that burden of responsibility that a student has on them, that once you know something, what do you do with it now? I mean, if you don't do anything with it, then the question is, how do we know that you know it? So the know, be, do reality. So from an active learning standpoint, learn this, but don't just let it stay here in your head or on your desk or whatever it is, but go do this. And then we have conversations in the classroom about how have we done what we've just learned, or how have we seen that take place in other people's lives. And so I think it's a great model, because our theory informs our practice, much like our practice informs our theory.
Do you have mostly professional students?
The majority of students that I teach are undergrad students.
Oh, they're undergrad.
Yeah, so these are folks that, deer in a headlight, they don't really know what they don't know. And so we have to start in the very foundational theoretical framework and then build out. And we really focus on kind of three core areas would be competence, character, and change. And so what's your competence as a leader? What's your character as a leader? And how do you change circumstances organizationally, personally, as a leader, and bring it all together? And that's their practicum, their final product. So a lot of these folks don't have professional experience, but they're serving and leading in various different ways. And so if we can change the conversation to have them see that all of life is leadership, then all that we're doing is we're leading other people in one form or another.
Is the practicum like a group practicum or individual? Do you bring in the cases? Do they bring them? Just can you give an example?
Yeah, so it's really built on, at least in theory, not always the case, but where the student serves as a leader. So how are they putting into practice the very things that we are teaching in a class. So we run it more as a seminar, kind of Socratic style of learning experience in the classroom. But they're bringing their experience from, it could even be that afternoon or the night before their board meeting or something, and how does that specifically and explicitly relate to what we're talking about in the classroom?
Okay, cool. Thank you. The next question is, what technology do you typically use when you teach in the classroom? So, either one.
I mean, I use all sorts. One of the suggestions was projection screens, and I think, yes, we use projection screens, and that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. But specific, media. I mean, for instance, I use an iPad in my instruction, and I scroll through my slides, and or you even have your clicker to go back and forth. So there's little, simple things that we do.
Do you project your iPad?
I would.
You would.
If the technology allowed for it to take place.
Okay.
So, which I think is another question. So there's a precursor of things to come. So that's the ideal situation. So I look at, I think valuing the face-to-face classroom as much as I do, how does technology make the face-to-face instruction better? So not how does it replace it, how does it supplement it, but how does it actually improve the overall learning experience for the student is kind of my big question that I ask before I use any technology in the classroom.
Don't you use Flipbook?
Yes.
And have the students use iPad?
Yeah, so we
you
use
want to kind of
Flipbook.
explain what that is?
So Flipbook is kind of just an aggregator of content. So it, you might see it as even a kind of a larger, blown up version of Twitter, or there's Pocket. So there's all these places to save information, or Evernote, something like that. But what I like about Flipbook so much is that it creates a magazine of content that you've aggregated from all over. So the students, by the end of the semester, then have really a full digital magazine of content specifically related to the very things that we're talking about in class. So I add to it, they can add to it. If folks from outside the classroom want to add to it, then as long as the content is relevant, it's really beneficial for the overall learning experience.
Do you get good participation?
I'm relatively new to using it specifically in the classroom, so I've used it for a long time myself. I find that those that do engage in using Flipboard and other tools like that, it does definitely enhance their overall experience. I think it's so new to so many individuals, which is so funny to say, if I use Snapchat or something like that in the classroom, I might get a better response.
Because they're used to using it?
Because they're used to using it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, young or old, we're creatures of habit. We
Right.
like to use the things that we're familiar with. But our job as educators is to expose students to new things. And so I'm hoping to, as I think it was said earlier, develop a sense of followership that these young students will get on board, because I think there's some great, powerful learning experience and lessons that can take place by using a tool like that.
Okay, good. And Kathy, you mentioned the iPad app. I don't know if you want to kind of explain that more, or are there other types of technology that you use for teaching?
We use a variety of things, both in and out of the classroom. I would say in the classroom, within our department, we're all at different levels of discovery. Some are much more ahead than others. When I went to school, I took my state board exam with paper and pencil, and people were still doing overheads. So I think what's common to all of us is we all use PowerPoint. We all embed videos and pictures to use as examples. The other thing that we've added in the classroom, fairly recently, just because we had the money to buy it, but we got a camera. So during lab, the camera can focus in, because a lot of what we do is manually based. So regardless
Right.
of the diagnosis of the patient, there's a lot of demonstration of different management strategies and techniques. So the camera has the ability to focus in on the hands of the instructor. So it's not just the students that happen to force their way, to the edge of the plinth where the technique is being demonstrated. The whole class has the ability
So you
to
project it?
see. So it's projected right next to the PowerPoint, so we can talk about the PowerPoint, and then the technique can be visualized right next to it. So, but as a whole group,
Is that a special kind of camera, or just a video
no,
camera?
it's a regular
Okay.
video camera that you could get anywhere, but
Okay.
it is hooked up through the smart system
Okay.
that's in the room and then projected. And then outside of the classroom, all of us are kind of moving towards having the patients review the material ahead of time. So some of us record PowerPoints. I personally have used Camtasia. I've used Explain Everything.
Okay.
So those programs have the ability to embed videos so that if you're discussing a particular type of dysfunction, the students can watch it while you're talking about it. So they can do all that at home and then come to class prepared. And then when we get to class, instead of me lecturing for 2 or 3 hours, we can then, assuming that they've gained mastery of that material, we can just answer a few questions and then move on and then go to case studies, or we can go to group projects, or we can go to group discussions or other problem solving types of activities instead.
So that might be called a flipped classroom where they learn
Yes.
outside.
Yes.
Can you explain what Camtasia and Explain Everything can do, or how you use them? Just basically.
Well, Camtasia, I have a very limited knowledge of everything because Camtasia is almost a little bit too much for me as far as the video editing. It's useful for the app, which I don't do that portion myself, the editing of the videos. What I've used it to do is capture portions of video clips,
Okay.
and then either have audio recorded with it so it can explain what's going on in that video clip. And I use Explain Everything for the same thing. The nice thing about Explain Everything is I had a very bad experience where I recorded, I think, 350 slides in a PowerPoint, and I swear I pushed save after every slide and at the end of the presentation. But then when I went back to replay it, somehow within 6 months, all of the audio got lost. So then I frantically called, the IT department here, and 3 different people came out, and it was nowhere to be found. Like, it wasn't even on the computer. So, and other people have not had that problem, and I think since I've done that, PowerPoint is PowerPoint's a little bit different now, so I don't think other people have had that same problem. So that's the reason why I went to Explain Everything, because it has the ability to have the text there, and then you can also insert pictures, you can insert videos, you can talk and draw on the video as it's going on. So it gives you this whole nother depth of illustrating things on the video as the video's playing. So, and those are just the 2 I've played with. I know there's a bunch of other apps that are very similar, but those are just the 2 that I've used.
Well, we all have our tech scars. We all have
Yes.
the things we've lost and never found. We had to recreate, and just kind of as a note, so I know Explain Everything is an iPad application, and while Camtasia is a desktop application, and Explain Everything is a much cheaper tool. So I want to kind of mention that. Okay, good. And then where do you put these videos that you create?
Most of them are used in class.
Okay.
So this is the other when we get to the discussion on frustrations.
Okay.
I do post some of them on the drive for the students to
The
use at
Google
home
Drive?
because that's the purpose. But the problem we're having is that these patients who are in these videos have signed video releases for this university for the content to be used in the
good
classroom.
point. Yeah.
But once they're in the students' hands, we have no idea where it goes from there. We have the protection of once it's in the app, you have to sign up for the app to get it, so you can't just give it to somebody. But the videos and things like that I use in class, even though the students are told this is not for your personal use, this is not to show your friend, it's not for them to take to school, we really don't have control over that. But I do use them both places, both in and out of the classroom.
You don't want to put the black on the eyes.
Oh, we do all that
Do you?
too, but when you're standing there, patient standing there in really just a Speedo,
Oh,
the
no.
black line across the face doesn't really block out much. But
Okay. Okay. So this is your chance to voice your frustrations, challenges, limitations about technology. So either one of you can take that one.
This is the long portion.
I think so. For me, it is. I don't know about you.
So I mean, I think for me, I just kind of I realize that there's going to be limitations, and so you work with those. I've lost things as well. I didn't mention I use Camtasia, and it probably crashes every 3rd take for me.
Oh, wow.
So for whatever reason that does do that, but I realize that that's going to happen, and I just take it again. So I mentioned I would love to project in the classroom from my iPad for simplicity and kind of moving around the classroom and all those different reasons probably that many of us would like. But whether it's a secure network issue or something like that, certain apps they might work in certain they might work in my home because it's all on my personal network. But you bring it here and it's on a larger infrastructure, and I understand that too. From a protection standpoint, it's not something that we're clear to use at this point. So, so I think we say frustrations. For me, they're frustrating only as much as I allow them to be, and then you just work around and you figure out a system that works best. So, would I love to see a more interactive classroom that we could go anywhere and you see on television, you move your hand and the whole screen comes live.
That was in Minority Report, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and that movie was old, so I mean, if it existed then, why can't it exist today?
It was just a movie, Jeff.
Yeah, well, all movies have an element of truth to them too, so, or some do anyway. Yeah. It was on the internet, so it had to be true. Okay. So, but yeah, so there's definitely limitations, but I think it's your approach to the classroom too, and so I have my frustrations, but I understand, the saying is you can't live with technology and you can't live without technology. And I think if technology replaces personality, then you have a problem. So I think you always have your person in the classroom to teach. So whether technology works or not, if your person is there, then I think you can make it happen. And then you look at ways that you can complement that through technology. And if they work, they work. And if they don't, then you move on and you do something new. So. Yeah,
and I know there's kind of a buzz around this, that there's a myth that today's student just wants to be wired all the time or connected in all the time, which faculty say, no, it's not really true. Yeah. They still want that, the human connection, of course, we all want that. And you kind of remind us that we do get those calls, at the 11th hour in our office of my stuff's not working. So testing ahead and preparing ahead as much as you can, because everyone that the demon is in the machine somewhere. Yeah. This is his day to come out. Yeah. Okay, so what are your frustrations besides losing 350 slides?
Besides losing things. Well, like Jeff said too, I think my primary frustration is me, because I am not as experienced as the students are. The students come in, and actually our students are a great resource because they'll say, oh, look at this, or they'll see me do something, yes. They'll go, you can do that differently, right? So then they'll show us shortcuts for things. So that part's great, and that for me that just means I need to take the time to practice more. But a couple of the other frustrations related specifically to the technology, things like explain everything, and I tried playing with skies a little bit. Some of the presentations that I have are huge, and it's the storage of the app. So all these apps are made so that you can import existing PDFs, which is great because most of us have PowerPoints that we convert to PDFs, which we then upload for the students. But if the app can't hold, a very large PowerPoint, then we either need to break it down so then it changes, the relationship of the content of the material to each other. So that's number one. I've had trouble with storage. And then the second thing is, once you put it into these apps and you try to add videos and things like that, of course something comes up. It's like, oh, I should have added this. But once it's in the app and it was previously in PDF form, you can't modify that slide.
Okay.
So then I either have to delete it, create another slide, and then in PowerPoint convert it to PDF and then reinsert it. Or if I recreate the slide in the app, then that slide looks different from all the other slides. So it's almost like you have to make sure everything is perfect because there's very low ability to modify at least the text portion of it. We can add, the reason why it's in the app is to add the video and all that, but it's trying to modify anything that was there before. That's a little bit of a frustration.
It changes your workflow.
It does. It
definitely changes your workflow because PowerPoint is the authoring tool and the presentation tool all combined in one.
Right.
And it's easy to change. It's kind of vector-based. Well, and you might, one thing we are advocating too is that people do smaller presentations. So if you have a very large PowerPoint deck, don't try to put the whole thing in one movie anyway, for educational reasons. Maybe you could label it by topic and so forth. So, and that helps technically, and it helps with the students too if they want to go back and review it. So those technology limitations in some ways help us to create these smaller kind of objects, for students to learn with. How are we doing on time? We're doing great. Okay, the next one, it says, since the technology companies are here listening, what would you like them to know in terms of either improving current products or creating new ones?
Minority Report. I mean, so No, I mean, for me, wireless. I mean, yeah, I mean, just move your hand, or even better, like have me think it and then have a video come on or something
That's
like that.
scary.
So, and also, yeah, that's a bit intrusive and really scary at the same time. So it's just a joke, technology companies, please don't do that. But wireless. I mean, I think that's the big thing. So, and not just wireless for the sake of wireless, but useful wireless. Those that are watching can't see around the whole room right now, but I was shown an example of a wireless projection option, and I think that's fantastic, because wires they're ugly, and you trip over them, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, and sometimes somebody that was in the classroom before you maybe took a wire, or they took an adapter, and then you're limited, and if you get there 5 minutes before class starts because you come from another class right before then, you don't have the right tools. But wireless isn't going to save the world yet, but it's definitely going to help to make things a little bit more simple in the classroom. I don't know a lot more besides that. I love to use the technology, and this is an admission I'm making. I put a lot of trust in those that are innovative, that come up with technology, because they're thinking about what works best. But I love that there's a collaboration right now, because we're talking about the things that we do, and so I think just even as you're creating technology, thinking about, so this is a great innovative idea, but what does it practically mean for the classroom? And I'm sure that there's those conversations ongoing, and if they are, great, continue them. If they're not, start them, but ask the people that are using the technology, not what do you need, but what do you do, because those that are creating are the ones that come up with what can be done through technology, but we're the ones that are doing the work in the classroom, and so that kind of collaborative effort, I think, could produce some really great results.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a collaboration, and it's kind of anti to what you said, but I heard Ford said if he asked people what they wanted, they'd say a faster horse. But he still needed to ask people what they wanted, because they would tell him we need cup holders and we need whatever it is that we need. So absolutely, the conversation needs to be there. What about you, Kathy?
Well, since we're talking about movies,
Yes.
What I would like is, and this is all related to manipulation.
The Matrix.
Yes.
The Matrix, yeah.
To manipulation of videos. So, we do show the students, based on some other research equipment that we have, we can show them a computer-generated model of somebody walking or somebody doing a different task, and then we have the ability to rotate it, 360 degrees, so they get a 3D view. If there was a way to do that with a video, it would obviously have to be filmed differently, I would imagine. But like in the Matrix, where it'll flip and it'll give you a 360 view of somebody's doing. So you may be watching them from the side because you're looking at a particular impairment, but you want to see what it also looks from behind. The way we get around that now is we do split screen. We'll video things from the front, the back, and then the sides, and then put split screen so that people can see, both views together. But it still doesn't give you.
Or you like to manipulate it.
Yes.
Manipulate the
I'd like
view.
to be able to manipulate it, or even better. Speaking of another movie, in the very first Star Wars, the little guy that would project a 3D image.
Help me,
of
Obi-Wan
Princess Leia.
Kenobi.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So if there was a way to project this 3D image of something in the middle of the classroom so that everybody could see.
That would be cool.
That would solve a lot of problems. That would be cool.
Yeah.
So those are the two wish lists.
Are you ready to wear those buns, though, on the side
I
of your
totally would wear the buns if somebody would do that in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Heard it here first.
Heard it here.
And then Jeff will wear them.
Gladly.
The buns. Okay, last question. If you could design the perfect digital classroom, what would that look like?
The perfect digital classroom. Oh, that's a big question. And the Minority Report and Matrix
Just
really
go
can't
for another
answer those
sci-fi
questions.
movie.
I was thinking about that, and I don't
Got a
really
lot of
watch sci-fi
fans.
movies, so I think that that just having usable, the ideal, usable tech that doesn't fail.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's possible, because there's always something that happens that there, and it's sometimes it's user errors, and sometimes it's technology error, and so if you're asking the ideal, I mean that's the ideal. Like,
Oh, that's
make
very
something that
good.
doesn't
Absolutely.
break. And so admittedly I'm an Apple user, and I like the simplicity of what's there. I mean, the drag and drop function. You don't have to, the user interface is very user friendly for me. And so now I'll have colleagues that ask me to help them on certain computers that are PCs, and I haven't used one for about 13 years. And so it's hard for me to kind of think back how that was 13 years ago, and with all the the improvements and adjustments that have been made. So obviously you need different brands for competition and market sake, but an ideal one wouldn't work, but you had one mode of computer technology that worked for everything. But that's not possible. So I mean, but simplicity. I think simplicity and things that don't break would make.
No, that's a very good point. I think it was one of the IMT people was telling me the other day, and I can't remember now what the number was, but it's sort of like if a professor has a problem, you have 15 seconds. It's a very short window where they go, forget it, I'm going without the technology. So I think what you've said is essential, because we're not here to do technology, we're here to do education, facilitated with technology. What about you, Kathy?
Well, I'm assuming that cost is not an issue.
Sure.
So if we were not talking about cost, having all the students on a similar device or the same device.
Good. Okay.
And even within our faculty, we're split. Half of us are Apple, half of us are PC. So even amongst the faculty, we don't use the same programs because they don't. One program that does well with one doesn't play well with the other type of computer. So if there was a way that all the students would have access to a device that could, where we could use the same program with all of them, then we wouldn't have to, because what we're doing right now is for people who have this device, we'll put it in this format. We will also upload the PDF for those who don't have an iPad or who don't, have whatever other device.
Just to kind of do the
yeah,
double work.
so we have, and it's not that much work for us because it was created in PDF form probably to begin with, so we just upload that as well. But if we're going to have these experiences where the students can interact with each other and then have us interact with them, we all need similar devices so that all of us can be connected together in the classroom. So what would be nice is if there was a different device for every seat, or if a student had the same device that they could bring in, that we could all access the same thing. That would probably be the best.
One I think too is PDF is an example that's pretty basic, but as you move up the food chain of technology, it's going to be harder to convert whatever this interactive piece is to the other side potentially. So you don't want it to be a barrier to your aspirations to do higher level stuff than PDFs and PowerPoints and videos and stuff like that. So probably now is the time to find whatever magic solution that is. Any other final comments, panel?
No, I don't think so. That's about it.
I think
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, Ann, for leading us through this discussion. Thank you, Jeff and Kathy, for your remarks. You got our checklists out, and we've got work orders working to fix that technology. But certainly we've heard you. And so that's what this is all about, is engaging in technology and engaging you as those proficient people that are out there teaching our kids. How do we help you do your job better? And how do we engage those kids that are coming into our classroom that have a 6-second attention span, right? They're like the 30-second commercial type kids. And we've got to engage them, sometimes for an hour and a half, to give them this deep concept and philosophy of the discipline that we're trying to teach them. So thank you very much for this. And I want to thank all of you that are here and all of you that are out there online for your attention and joining with us. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you.